All right. Welcome back for another live episode of Safe Home Interactive. I'm Rob Gabriel, home security expert and editorial director at safehome.org. And today we're here with Gene Petrino of Survival Response LLC. And if you haven't been with us before, Gene is a former SWAT commander. He's worked as street crimes unit sergeant and as a gang task force officer, among other posts. And so he knows how bad guys think. And today we are attempting to step inside the minds of criminals like burglars and thieves. And like always, we'll be doing a live Q&A. So if you have any questions at all, please drop those in chat at any time. And while you're at it, just let us know in the chat that you're here. Say hello. We'd love to hear from you. And yeah, we also have a poll going, actually, that's in the YouTube chat. So go ahead and drop your best answer in there, and we're going to share that a little bit later in the episode. So with that, hey, Gene, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing?
Doing well. Great to have you again here today.
Thank you.
Yeah. So to get us started here, what is the first thing that burglars look for when choosing a home to break into?
Oh, they're looking for the just easy access and low visibility. So anything that looks like there's places for them to hide, maybe a door that's concealed by bushes or hedges, things like that. Or if it's nighttime where it's dark and they can sneak up without being seen, those are the kind of things they're looking for. Again, I always say that criminals are basically cowards and they don't want to get caught. So anything that makes it easy for them to not be detected is what they're really looking for.
That's right. Yeah. Criminals are cowards. We love that mantra around here now. We hear it weekly and it's true. Hey, chat. We have some people coming in here. This is great. Senior Living. Hi. We're also excited for this. Simone. Hello. James. MD. All right. And looks like autoinsurance.com is on the line. Awesome. All right. Thanks, Gene, for that. So how much planning would you say goes into the typical burglary? And are most burglaries opportunistic or strategic?
Yeah, the majority of them are opportunistic. It's usually, people that are driving through an area or they know of an area and they're just going to start scouting out homes. I would probably say about 80% of burglars are just not an opportunistic crime. So there's not a lot of planning that goes into it, but they are selective on which homes that they're going to target, just based on, like we were talking earlier, the accessibility, the low visibility, if they can get in without being seen, if it looks like there's nobody home, if the house is not maintained properly. Things like that. If a house isn't maintained properly, they're going to believe that there's probably people that live there that don't take much seriously. So they're not going to take their security seriously. They're probably going to leave a door unlocked or a window unlocked. So they're looking for those kind of things that make it a little bit easier to get in and get out as quick as they can.
Right. Yeah. We talked in a previous episode about that, like paint maybe peeling on your siding. The hedges are kind of grown over and that sort of thing. So sounds like the criminals are looking for those telltale signs.
Yes, definitely.
And then kind of on that note, do burglars often travel or drive to other parts of the town to commit their crimes, or are criminals mostly targeting like homes in their local neighborhoods?
So generally they're local, but it does depend on the area that you're in. Down here in South Florida, we've known groups to travel from, the neighboring city, or even sometimes, depending on the types of crime they're committing or planning on committing, they might go to the county, above or below where they live. So it just depends. It depends on the availability of the highways, and can they get in and out of an area quickly. So if they're traveling, they're most likely going to be somewhere that's close to an interstate where if they've got to run, they can get out on the interstate and escape quickly. So, but traditionally, you're looking at people that are in that local area.
Okay. Yeah, and you mentioned about 80% of all home burglaries are opportunistic, which makes sense. The other 20%, I mean, are there professional burglars out there? I mean, I'm sure they are. Is that the whole other 20%, and what are these people doing? Is this their living?
Yeah. So there are groups. We're seeing a lot of it actually out on the west coast of the country right now. You're seeing a lot of foreign groups that are coming in here into the United States, either legally or illegally, and they're actually canvassing neighborhoods, putting up trail cameras in the neighborhoods to see what the patterns are, see when people are coming and going from their houses, what's normal and what's not. So they're using technology even to make sure that they have the best intelligence, so they can go into these higher end neighborhoods, get in there as quick as they can to get all the stuff they need, and get out without being seen. So there are those smaller groups that do that. It's not as frequent, but we have seen a rise in it over the last year or so. So that is something that does happen.
Yeah, I've seen that in Southern California, particularly a
Yeah.
rash of you know, homeowners and renters finding these outdoor cameras pointing at their place,
Mhm.
whether like out in the trees or the bushes or
Yeah.
behind a brick wall,
Yeah.
which is scary. But yeah, like outdoor cameras, like wireless battery powered outdoor cameras are so incredibly cheap and they're ubiquitous nowadays, easy to get your hands on. So they can be used for ill. Yeah.
Yeah, and they use drones as well. They can use
Oh, wow.
drones to fly over homes to see what's in the backyard, to see. I mean, there's the drone technology is amazing these days. The ability for those cameras to zoom in is really good.
Mhm.
And they don't cost a lot of money to do it. And if they lose the drone, they're not losing a lot. It's easier than getting caught. So the groups that are out there are using technology to enhance their ability to canvass a neighborhood or a home,
Mhm.
and give them a little bit of extra of an edge.
Right. Yeah, and so, like, with, like, thinking about the technology that the criminals are using, what are some of the things that we can do, to combat that?
Well, you gotta keep them on their toes, so that's
Mhm.
changing up your patterns, um, leaving at different times of the day if that's possible, or coming home at, different directions sometimes.
Mhm.
If you drive the same pattern every way, they know that you're gonna come down one street, make a left, go to the next, they're gonna watch for these things, and if you switch that up, they're not gonna know when is the best time to go, because you're gonna switch that up on them.
Sure.
So that's one thing. Again, using technology to your advantage as well. You can use timed lights inside your house. There's all kinds of things that you can use, where you can simulate dogs barking in your home.
Mhm.
Just utilizing the incredible technology that we're starting to see, especially in security, is really an advantage for both sides. But they're using it, and so should you.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, and, what do burglars assume about homeowners, if anything at all? What are they assuming, and how can we use that to our advantage?
I just was alluding to it. They're predictable.
Yeah.
They think that people, and there's some truth to it. We're all creatures of habit. We all do the same things. I mean, think about it. When you drive into work every day, do you really remember the drive? Most likely you don't, because you're
Mhm.
on autopilot. You're just, I'm going to work, and you don't think about it. So there is some truth to that, but we can again switch that up and make it more unpredictable. So driving
Mhm.
a different way, or coming home earlier or later sometimes, is those are all good things. And obviously paying attention to what you're doing when you're driving in and out of your neighborhood. Do you see any cars or any people that stand out that aren't usually there? If you see them one day, that's one thing. If you see them the next day, might be a red flag for you to start considering that you want to start looking at things.
Mhm. Yeah, and so that's kind of been a recurring theme in talking with you too. Like, kind of keep your head on a swivel.
Hmm.
If you see something that seems off, it doesn't necessarily mean that someone's about to commit a crime, but it is something to kind of look into and kind of keep your eye on. That's right.
Yeah.
Um, and what are some of the most overlooked signs that someone is casing a home in the neighborhood?
Well, casing the neighborhood, they're going to look for, like I said, signs of neglect on the house.
Mm.
There are some groups that will actually put flyers on doors, and one day and the next day come back to see if those flyers are still there,
Mhm.
because that shows that someone might not be home. So they'll use tactics like that. They'll knock on doors, and asking,
Mhm.
if does John live? I'm looking for John. If you answer the
Mhm.
door and you say, well, John doesn't live there, they say, okay, goodbye, and they walk away. What they're doing is they're testing to see if somebody's inside that house, and if no one answers that door, they're gonna either kick that front door in, or they're gonna go around to the back and go that way.
Mhm.
Which kind of leads to one of the other issues that I have, and I hear all the time, is that people say, well, if I don't know who they are, I'm not answering the door.
Mhm.
Well, that's not a smart move. First of all, with the doorbell technology these days, it's very easy to communicate without opening your door. Number two,
Right.
you don't have to open a door just to let them know you're there. You can talk through the door. There's no doors that are soundproof on any houses, and you can ask who they are and what they're looking for.
Mhm.
And that way, they're not going to surprise you when they think that no one's home. They go and they kick the back door in, and you're inside, and you have a bigger issue now. Either they're going to run away or they're going to attack you. So it's
Right.
always good to let them know that you're there. And the doorbell cameras, again, really great because they don't know if you're there or not.
Mm-hmm.
You could be at work, you could be across the country on a business trip, and they're not going to know if you're actually there or you're not there.
That's right.
And even if you're not there, you at least know they're there, and you can call for help. So
Mm-hmm.
a lot of advantage that you could take advantage of. But that's what they're looking for. They're going to look for things like that. They might look for, you know, they might pose as someone that's a utility worker or someone selling something. Unfortunately, a lot of the door-to-door salesmen aren't really salesmen. They're just trying to see what's there. And you'll notice if you answer the door, how they're looking inside your house. That's not a good thing, and that's why, again,
Yeah.
we say, don't open the door up. You can still talk to them. Just tell
Mm-hmm.
them you're not interested and go from there.
Right. Yeah, and that's a good point about the doorbell cameras too, because they do have the two-way talk on those. And so
Mhm.
if someone knocks on your door, whether you're home or not, you can jump on that and actually have a conversation with them. They'll know that someone's watching, that someone's home or not, but at least, you have your eyes on your house if you're not there. So,
Yeah, I actually had
Mhm.
I had a salesman come. They were from I won't mention the company, but one of the security companies coming, and
Mhm.
they started asking me questions about what kind of security I have, and I said, "Why would I ever answer that question to you? Like, why would
Mm.
I give? Well, do you have? I'm not going to tell you if I've. I'm not going to tell you." And I
Yeah.
laughed, and I said to and I said, "Do people really answer these questions?" He said, "Oh yeah."
Mm.
And he had an ID on him, and he was driving a car marked with, like, everything looked legitimate, but at the same time, how easy is it to pretend like you're somebody that you should be giving that information to, and you just give it away, and now they know everything about your home. They know that
Right.
you have a security system that you don't use, because that was one. Do you use it often? Why would you answer those questions to a stranger? So always be careful
Exactly.
about, who's coming to your house and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I've actually had the idea of maybe going around and doing like a home security audit of people's houses, like whether it's my area or different neighborhoods. But then I thought, like, who's going to want to let me in and like show me all the different cameras and what they have going, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but it sounds like people might.
Yeah. Well, they I get called for those audits, pretty frequently, and
Yep.
I always ask, how did you find, how did you do your research on me first? And they said, yeah, it's because everyone's nervous about letting someone into their house. They want to vet everyone. So, definitely have somebody, but if someone comes offering that, you might want to second guess using them. You might want to do some research and find someone in your area that can do it, because security audits, people don't realize how much goes into it.
Yeah.
And most of it is not that hard and not that expensive to do, to upgrade your home to make it a little more less vulnerable.
Right. Yep. And chat, yeah, if you guys have any questions, please put those in the chat here, and we'll get Gene to answer those for us today. Um, Next up here, I have, how do burglars typically get in? You kind of alluded to this before. They'll check the front door, maybe they'll go around the back, kind of kick the back in. So what entry points are most common?
Anything that's unlocked, unlock. I
Mhm.
mean, the first thing that they're going to do is, if they knock on the front door and no one answers, they're going to try the front door. They're going to see if it opens up, and sometimes it does, and then they're inside. If not, they're going to go to the back. They're going to check sliding glass doors first, or French doors if you have them. Those are very easy to open or defeat. And then
Mhm.
they're going to check windows. Windows will be one of the other ones that they look for.
Mhm.
But a lot of people just do not take care with the way that they secure their home, and as simply as locking your door is a huge advantage, because, again, if it's locked, they got to break it in. That takes time, and it's going to make noise,
Mhm.
so they don't want to get caught. They're going to try to avoid that, so they'll move on to the next house.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. So like the lowest hanging fruit really is just locking your doors and
Yeah.
windows,
Hmm.
which I think a lot of people don't do,
No.
even today.
Nope.
So, what time of the day have you found that most residential burglaries actually occur?
Well, this is the one that everyone's always surprised at, but it's daytime. It's
Mm,
around somewhere around 10 o'clock in the morning to maybe 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon is the average.
mhm,
You're at school, you're at work. Usually, the house is empty at that point, and that's when they're going to do what they do.
mhm,
So they're, again, looking for the easiest thing. They don't want to get caught. They don't want a confrontation with anybody. So they're looking for those vacant homes, and that's just the best time to do it. The ones that break in at night are technically a little bit more dangerous, because that has to do more with a home invasion type of situation. So there's usually more
mm,
violence in those kind of cases, which is similar but different issue.
right. What? Do you think that burglars feel nervous when they're breaking into homes, or is it more calculated and calm, or does it completely depend on like what the situation is and what the target is?
They're anxious. I would say the
Mhm.
majority of them, the opportunistic ones are anxious. They don't know what they're really getting into. They're just thinking, "Oh, this looks like a good house." And again, they're looking for certain things that it's going to minimize their chance of getting caught. But they don't know. They don't know if there's somebody that's just maybe inside sleeping, could have a weapon. They really don't know what's happening in there.
Mhm.
But they feel like that was worth a chance. So um, I think they're mostly anxious when they go in there. But if you get to the other level of criminals, the ones that are more organized, they're not anxious. They have a plan in place. They know exactly what they're going to do. They know if someone's home, how they're going to respond.
Mhm.
They're gonna run. They're gonna fight. They're gonna just talk their way out. Try to talk their way out of it. They have an escape plan, and they've usually done the research enough to know that the probability of being caught is relatively low. So they're calm in that and confident in what they're doing.
Right, and that's that 20% we were talking about,
Yeah,
but for
yeah.
the other, like, 80%, would you say, they break into a home and they encounter someone, what do you think their reaction is? Or, how might they respond? Is
They
there, like,
run.
a
The
typically
majority of
just
them
out of
run.
there?
The
Okay.
majority of them run because usually someone ends up screaming, and again, criminals are cowards, they hear loud noises, they hear someone screaming, they're getting attention called to them, and they
Mhm.
typically will run out. The majority of the ones that I've worked over the years, that's exactly what's happened.
Okay, got
Yeah.
it. And then, on that theme there, is there anything else that would make a burglar, like, immediately, like, abandon the break-in attempt?
Yeah, so
Mm,
anything that shows that somebody's inside. So
mhm,
noises coming from inside, lights turning on, using that two-way communication on your security system to say, "Hey, what are you doing in my backyard?" Things like that. That's usually enough to get people out of there. Neighbors that are seeing, if they're seen by neighbors, that's usually enough, or confronted by neighbors.
mhm.
So anything that's going to get them to second guess that that home is unoccupied or might have a dog or there's an alarm there, things like that. That's definitely gonna make them abandon the attempt.
Okay. Yeah. So an alarm, cameras we talked about, a dog.
Mhm.
What else can people do to make their houses more of like a difficult target for burglars or thieves or home invaders? Any of those?
Yeah. So again, you want to make your house look like that's not the house that you want to mess with, right?
Hmm.
So you want to make sure that the hedges are trimmed properly so you can see, the windows aren't being blocked, the doors aren't being blocked, that there's not a lot of ambush points is what we call them, or vulnerability areas, places they can hide to either hide what they're trying to do is breaking in or hide attacking you if you're coming home or leaving your house. So
Hmm.
you want to start taking that part of it seriously. For nighttime stuff, you want to have excellent lighting around your house, and you don't want to have it just, when before you go to bed and shut it off. You want to have it on all night. You want to keep those lights on all the time. Have motion sensor lights that will trick people into thinking, oh, that might be somebody, might not be. Most of the
Hmm.
criminals these days are savvy with that. They understand that they're motion sensitive lights, but there's still psychologically that light turning on triggers that part of their central brain where the midbrain where that sets fight or flight. What do we do?
Hmm.
And it starts to trick them to think, oh, this might not be good. So that's a pretty smart way to do it is having that. You can update all of your doors and windows with better locking mechanisms. I think I talked about it last week, which was you know replacing the screws in all your doors,
Hmm.
the hinges and everything. They're usually about a half an inch screw, which doesn't do much with
Yeah,
keeping that
it's
door.
like.
And it's easy. Yeah, it's tiny. Put a 3-inch screw in there.
Hmm.
Do all your hinges that way. That really makes those doors very difficult to kick in or
Hmm.
pry open, depending on which way your door opens. And you can buy a lot, like that's a very inexpensive fix that anybody can do. It's just a screwdriver or a drill. If you, if you want to make it easier, use a drill with the attachment on it.
Right.
You can also buy very inexpensive window locks that you can just put on that they either screw on with just a little twist lock or
Hmm.
just different mechanisms that connect to them. And those are really good things. Even putting a stick in the door for the sliding glass door so that it can't be open if they pop the locks off those doors, you can
Yeah.
do that and put that in track. There's tons of little things that you can do. Don't cost a lot of money. Does make it a little harder for them to get in. And again, the harder it is, the more time that they have to spend there, the longer the chances that they're going to get caught. So they don't want to
Mm.
waste time with something. If they can't get in, they're going to eventually run away.
Right. Yeah, yeah, and if you have a little bit of budget to spend on this kind of thing, there's also glass break sensors.
Oh
This is
yeah.
for the chat out there, the audience. You can get the glass break sensor, so when someone like shatters the glass, it picks up on that sound, that really high pitch frequency sound, and it'll sound the alarm. So that's also pretty helpful here.
Yeah, those are great, and they work really well. Motion sensors inside your house to trip the alarm if someone is able to break into the house. And again, we always talk about a redundant system, and that's a good example. It let some alarm systems can fail. Sometimes the sensors detach. They don't go off when they were supposed to, and someone, let's say, gets inside your house. You have a motion sensor, and then that's going to trip it as well. So you have that redundant system. Very, very valuable to have. So that's why security systems are important. The cost of them has come down incredibly since, over the last decade. So it's really not much reason not to have one at this point.
Yep, that's right. We have a couple questions here in chat. James asks, any tips for reinforcing providing deterrence on French doors?
Those are tough. There are certain locks that you can do. You want to make sure that the pin lock the pin locks that go up into the top and bottom of the foundation. You want to make sure those are pretty secure. A lot of times you can reinforce those. There's ones you can replace them with that are a little bit longer. But those are difficult to do. That's why it's a good target for them. But getting a good quality door is really important. So a lot of them, if you get we call them hurricane doors, but storm doors that are strong enough, that makes it a little bit harder, and make sure that they're installed very well. Again, using longer screws, things like that.
Right. Yeah, that's a tricky one to protect. We also have not me here, but there's also like glass, like glass pane doors, or like to either side of the door there might be like a slim glass pane, that kind of thing.
Yep.
That can pose a risk for sure, because obviously like someone can break through there and maybe get at the door handle there. Especially like if you have an alarm system too. I always tell people, don't have like the hub or the base station sitting right there in your foyer where they can see in a window and see whether or not it's armed, right? Don't hang keys there, that sort of things. Like that's all very important. So
yeah, definitely. Very, very good advice.
We have a couple other questions here. So autoinsurance.com asks, any tips for preventing car theft or theft of items from the car, either parked in a driveway or on the street?
Well, on the street, it's tough because it's a little farther from the house, and people can just pull up and not really even get out of their car to break into one car from the roadway. So not a lot you can do from that other than lighting. The best advice for theft from a car is don't leave anything of value inside your car. That's just the first thing. A lot of people are like, oh, I just left that in there. No, then you have a good chance of getting it stolen. So doing that. As far as preventing car thefts, it's the technology these days is crazy, and the ability to copy key fobs are just increasingly becoming something that almost anybody can do. The best thing you could do is not keep your key fobs close to your front door, because they can pick up on the signal from it. So that's probably one of the better things to do. Most of the car thefts, and car burglaries are a nighttime thing. So, because no one stays in their car, at night, so they know the car is empty, whereas the house is empty during the day, the car is empty during the night. So this is where lighting comes to be a very, very valuable asset, along with the security camera system. The system's not going to actually do much more than maybe alert you that somebody's there, but at the very best, it's going to provide evidence on who's committing that crime. So you want to have a good security system. You want to have really good lighting so that they don't feel comfortable walking up to that car, because they're going to be seen.
Yeah, we had an instance here just a couple weeks ago where one of my neighbors, her teenage son, was sitting in his truck, and it was late at night, and someone came by and jumped in the back of the truck to grab a duffel bag and startled him, of course. And so he gets out of the truck and chases this guy down the road, and they actually have it on their security cameras. They have the footage, and it's really funny. They shared it. So,
oh God,
yeah.
I don't know if chasing him was a smart thing to do.
Yeah,
but I get it.
Yeah, they got him out of here. And then we had the deputies, looking for footage around the neighborhood. So
yeah.
That was a great question here. We have a couple more. Let's see. So MD asks, do you have any particular tips for seniors who may live alone?
So this is where, you know, community comes into play. Having someone that you can rely on if there's something, if you feel nervous or scared, having somebody that you can call just if something doesn't feel right. But as far as seniors that live alone, again, it comes down to having a system that is manageable and easy to use and that you're actually using. So having that security system, um, one of the things that I think is one of the best thing that you can have is these smart locks these days. You can set them on a timer so that if you forget to lock your door, it's automatically going to lock that door after X
Mhm.
amount of minutes. You know, maybe 1 minute, 30 seconds, 5 minutes, whatever you set it at. That's a great thing because you start to forget things as you get older, and locking your doors like the number one thing you can do. Really, what we talked about earlier. You know, what are they looking for? They're looking for open doors. Well, having
Mhm.
that automatic lock on there is a really good thing. That's probably one of the best tips that I would say for seniors living on their own.
Great. And I would say another thing to add to that is just if, you know, caretakers, if they can, be involved, whether that's, cameras inside the home, they
Mhm.
can check on those remotely through their smartphone app.
Yeah,
That's helpful. Yeah, and like all the security system measures, very important there as
yeah.
well.
When we talk about caretakers, we have to be very cautious as well, though, because a lot of times, you know, the elderly are taken advantage of by caretakers.
Mm,
So we have to be careful about who it is. But if it's a family member that's helping, or you always want to have somebody that is a trusted individual.
mhm,
Some caretakers are like family, so that would be an okay thing. But if somebody new, you don't want to give them access to all that stuff because then they know what your behavior is. Oh, they know that you go to sleep at a certain time. They can come
mhm.
in. You know, they notice that you don't get up often, so you maybe are a heavy sleeper, that kind of thing. So, you know, cameras are great.
Mhm.
Using a caretaker is also good, but I would be, you know, just a little. I'd vet them first before
Yeah,
you give too much access.
absolutely. But like a grown, an adult mother or father, like the children of the
Absolutely,
elderly,
yeah.
really.
Family members,
Mhm.
well, most family members.
Yeah, not all family
There's
members.
always always the exception.
Right. All right. And then we have here another question from Simone. These questions are great, you guys. Keep them
Yeah,
coming in.
awesome. Yeah.
Is there any material that blocks their ability to copy our car keys, a metal case or something like that?
So there are Faraday bags that you can buy online, and they're basically like a steel mesh bag that blocks the RFID kind of technology that goes through it.
Mhm.
Um, you can also put them in a microwave, things like that. I think it's a little extreme, and I think there's some point that we get a little bit too heavy on this. What can we do to prevent? You're not going to prevent everything. If they want to get something, they're going to get it.
Mhm.
However, you know, simply just not putting those keys by that front door, putting them more in the interior of the house, a little farther away, so that that signal can't reach all the way through the home. That's really your best thing. But yeah, you can buy Faraday bags online. They're inexpensive, and you can put your keys and that kind of stuff in there. Mhm.
Okay, great. Um, what are there any myths that you know of, myths that people believe about burglars or break-ins that just aren't true?
Um, You know, in any aspect of security, whether it's personal security or home security, the attitude of it won't happen here, it won't happen to me always comes
Mhm.
up. And the reality is it's going to happen anywhere. It's, you know, again, we talk about, are they opportunistic? Yeah, the majority of criminals are opportunistic. They're not really planning what they're going to do. They might say, I know I need to go get money, I need to get something, and they're just going to go look for it. You know, they're not
Yeah.
really planning and scouting it out. So they were going to look for a nice neighborhood. They're going to look for that middle class, upper middle class neighborhood where they think they can get what they want.
Mhm.
And usually it's smaller items. Usually things like jewelry and, you know, cash. People keep a lot of cash in their house, so they're looking
Mhm.
for small things that they can put in their pockets or put in a backpack and then run off with. Um,
Yeah.
People also think, well, I have a camera system, and cameras are great. Cameras are really good. They're great at
Mhm.
collecting evidence. They're not great at stopping anything though. So you can see them doing it, and that's great. Also, people talk about, well, I have a dog. My dog will scare them off, and that's sometimes true, not always true. Again,
Mhm.
we're looking for redundancy. That the dogs are great, but some people aren't afraid of dogs.
Right.
You know, and they might, oh, it sounds like a smaller dog, especially if it's a smaller one. Oh, it's a little yapping dog. I'm not worried about that. So that might not stop them from doing it. But that coupled with a security camera, with a sign that says you have, you know, a security system at your house, with, you know, a yard that's well kept, that you can see, you know, there's no place for them to hide. all those things put together really are what you're looking for. But
Mhm.
yeah, when those myths of, oh, I have one thing that's enough is really not accurate. You need to have multiple aspects of a good security system to be effective.
Right. Yeah. Multiple layers. That's very true.
Yeah.
And when you talk about, the burglars coming in and taking the small things and maybe not touching some of the bigger items,
Hmm.
that kind of reminds me of the video we watched a few weeks ago, that burglar coming in and he's looking around, goes to the counter, snags the car keys.
Hmm.
There's probably what might have been an expensive tool set right there,
Yeah.
that he didn't even touch,
Yeah.
because that's the bigger item and he's going to be lugging that down the street.
Yeah.
He's more noticeable out there,
Yeah,
right? Like,
you can't run with a TV.
yeah, exactly.
So it's going to look obvious, pretty obvious that that's the issue.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. All right. So we have a question here from Annie. Aside from calling 911, what's the best way to react? Next action steps to take if someone does break into your home. What do you do? What do you recommend to best protect your family?
Okay, so the first thing, and this can go in a couple different directions. The first thing is that the time to have a plan is before it actually happens, right? Think
Mhm.
about, every day you should think about, what if I was in my house and I'm watching TV and I hear someone at the back door, what am I going to do? Where do I have a room that's a safe room that has a good lock on it that I can lock myself in there? Do I have kids? How do I get my kids from one room to the next to where we can all be together or be safe? Do I have a plan if I can't get to them? Do they know what to do? If you have, your spouse or your kids, in the house in other areas, if
Mhm.
you say something, do they know how to react? So having that kind of a what should we do plan, sort of like, do you know where your exits are in a building? If there's a fire, you want to know how to get out. It's the same concept with a home security plan. How do you move throughout your house, or how do you secure yourself if something happens at the front door, the back door, the side door, if they come through the garage? How are you going to handle that?
Mhm.
Think about it in advance. Think and walk through your house and think about, well, where could I go? What would be the best thing for me to do? Is there objects that if they broke in and I'm standing right there, is there something that can be used as a barrier between me and them if they're coming after me?
Mhm.
So that's the first thing. You want to really kind of delve into that. It can get pretty complicated. So you just want to take it a little bit of time. If someone comes through the front door, and think about it, just how would you react? And the next, once you figure that out, then focus on the next area.
Mhm.
As far as how to best protect your family, okay, obviously calling 911 is priority. You need to get help first. When it comes to protecting your family, that's a personal choice. That's a
Mhm.
personal choice on, do you have weapons? Do you know how to use them? Are you trained with them? Because if you have them and you don't use them, they're useless, because they're probably going to be used against you. So I would
Yeah.
advise not getting a weapon if you're not going to take it seriously. Um, but again, if you don't have a weapon and you're actually confronted and there's no other option for you to retreat or escape, you need to fight. You need to be able to
Mhm.
fight and defend yourself. That means using an improvised weapons, picking up a potted plant or a picture frame, something that you can hit them with. They
Mhm.
don't want, again, they want the easy target. If someone's fighting back, they're not going to like that. So making a lot of noise, all those things, fighting back, that's going to be usually enough to get them to leave. So
Yeah. Yeah. And chat, let me know in the comments here. Have you guys ever seen the movie The Panic Room? And Gene, have you seen this?
yeah,
And
yep.
is that a thing? Can that be a thing? Would you recommend? I mean, obviously, like,
Well, I mean, if
getting a
budget
fully vaulted, yeah, it's not going to happen.
if you have a budget that can afford that, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, but is it practical? No, because what if you're on the opposite side of the house? How do you get to that room?
Yeah.
It's not always possible, but you can have a room that has, let's say, a solid core door on it
Mhm.
that is a little bit more reinforced than the other rooms. Or even the best thing that you could do is have solid core doors on all your doors, so that
Yep.
you're able to secure those doors, enough to where if you're at one side of the house, you can get to that one room safely, lock yourself in while you're waiting for police, and have a plan.
Mhm.
What would I put in? Can I barricade the door somehow?
Yeah.
Is there furniture that I can move? And a lot of people think, oh, I'll just move my file cabinet. And well, until you try to move a file cabinet, you don't know that they're
Yeah.
once you're stuffing them, you're not going to move the file cabinet. But
Sure.
sometimes, you might have a dresser that you can slide in front of a door, or you might even have a little doorstop that you can throw on there, just as added, by each door that you could use. There's a lot of little techniques that you can do. But yeah, a
Mhm.
panic room is, it would be a nice thing, but it's really not very practical for most people.
Yeah. I like the idea of maybe like one room in your house, though, being like extra fortified.
Yeah,
That can kind of serve in some ways as the panic room.
yeah,
Looks like a whole bunch of people have seen it. That's fun.
yeah.
um, yeah. So What else do we have here? Yeah. Okay, here's a fun question. If you were a burglar trying to rob a house, what would be your plan of attack?
Oof. Okay. Well, again, we've covered it. I'm gonna look for that low hanging fruit. I'm gonna look for the ones that that the grass may not be too overgrown, but maybe not really taking too much care on it. I'm gonna look for, do they have the window treatments closed where if I got in, no one's going to see me? Are there hedges that block the windows? Can I get to the front door without someone seeing me while I'm trying to break into the house from the front? Because that's great. Some houses are off center a little bit, or they've got, big hedges blocking that front door. That's a great thing. That's the first thing I would look for. I'd look to see if there's any cameras. I would look for if there's no cars in the driveway, if there's flyers on the doors. If I didn't see anything that suggested they had a security system, so no security signs, things like that, I would look for those things first. And then, of course, I would do the old knock on the door, see if anyone's home, and just say, "Oh, I'm looking for Jennifer," and oh, she's not here. Oh, it's wrong house. Sorry. And I'd leave if someone answered the door. Otherwise, if no one's answering the door, pretty good chance there's no one home.
Yeah, that's right. And one thing I would recommend also for people to install. So if you have a home security system, awesome. Make sure you have motion detectors near the front door and then along common spaces like hallways or in the living room. Whereas if someone were to break into your home or your apartment, they have to pass through certain areas. And then if you have a motion detector there, it's going to sense their motion, send up alert, start the alarm, and then you can know then that something's going on, something's going down. And so if you're in another part of the house, then you can lock your door and that sort of thing. Carry through with whatever plan that you have. We have another question here. So this is from Steven. He asks, what can renters do to protect their homes since they can't necessarily change doors, landscaping, etc.?
Well, the old pen is mightier than a sword kind of thing comes into play here, because if you send a request to your landlord saying there's a security issue and I'm concerned that someone's going to be victimized if this landscaping is not trimmed back, things like that, you're putting them on notice that there's a problem, and now they have a responsibility to take care of that if that's the case. When it comes to like the doors and windows, again, you can buy additional locks that don't need to be affixed to it permanently. So you can buy those small window locks that you can connect on there. Door locks, yes, most of them you have to affix on there. But I've known people to make friends with the maintenance people at apartment complexes and say, "Hey, can you put these screws in? This seems kind of weird," and they'll usually comply. Give them $10. I mean, it's and they're not going to say anything. Just these are people that just want to make a little extra money. You can work around that if you have to. But most of the time, your landlord is not going to want to be responsible for anyone getting hurt. And yes, there's always, waivers in there that you sign to say, I won't hold you liable, but it's not always the case. If they're put on notice that there's an issue and they don't take it seriously, they can be held liable because now they've been made aware of the problem.
Yeah, and I like that idea of befriending the maintenance guy. It's not about what you know, it's who you know, right?
Yeah, absolutely right. Yep.
Would you rather, here's another question. Would you rather have a fake camera and fake alarm sign, or one big dog with no system?
So for me, I would rather have the camera. And the reason being is that's observable from outside, from the street or from the sidewalk. I can see there's a camera that's there. Whether it's real or not, I'm not gonna really know. But it would take me doing more investigating to see if it's true. So I'd probably avoid that first. The issue with a dog, barking dogs, especially a big dog, they're great. But until you walk up to that house, most of the time, until you get close to that front door, they're not going to make a sound. So you're not going to really know. So I would say just the farther out you can keep them from your house, the better it is. And that would be the fake security camera.
Okay, great. And we have the results in for the poll. Actually, this is related to that question. So we asked, which do you think burglars hate the most? Dogs, alarm systems, motion lights, or cameras. And we have, well, it's pretty split here. So dogs, 33%, alarm, 33%, motion lights, 22%, and cameras, 11%.
Yeah, it's funny. I suspected it would be around that area. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and again, it's not just one of those things that are valuable. You really have to have all of them to be the complete, redundant system where one thing fails, the next thing kind of picks up the pace there.
Mm.
But the again, I can probably make an argument for each one of those being the most important. But if I had to put a list together of what I would think, I would probably have cameras as one of the number one things, just because that can be seen from the roadway, the sidewalk, which would avoid them even getting onto your property in the first place. Everything else kind of follows if they're getting closer to your home. So keeping them the farthest away is, deterring them is the best thing.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The camera is really important to have. Obviously, like you said, that the many different layers is kind of where you want to get to, but
Yeah.
Start out cameras are great.
Yeah.
All right, here's a fun one. What's the strangest or dumbest mistake you've ever seen a burglar make, or any kind of criminal for that matter?
So we had a guy, a kid, break into a house, and when he was coming out of the house, he dropped his wallet right on the front doorstep.
Mm.
He was seen by the neighbor, and he got in his car and drove away. So we had they described him, how he looked. The vehicle description didn't have a tag or anything like that, but it was a very specific color vehicle and style of vehicle, and we had his ID. And so I was there investigating it, and lo and behold, this is like an hour or so after, he drives by to come get his wallet, and we arrested him.
Oh
So
my gosh.
not the brightest guy, but
No,
yeah.
that's worse than returning to the scene of the crime. Well,
Yeah,
I mean, it is, but it's also, yeah.
Yeah, it was not the smartest move. Probably not his best day.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, here's $100 security challenge. You have $100 to secure your home or your apartment. What are you buying? Like, where are you spending that money first?
Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to reinforce my doors and locks,
Mm-hmm.
and that's usually relatively inexpensive. If it's a house, I'm probably going to buy a motion sensor light that I can put out in the back, or the front, or somewhere positioning where it's going to be strong that way. I would definitely buy a sign that says I have a security system, and I put that in the front, so it's obvious that there's a security system there, even if there's not, just saying that I have one.
Mm-hmm.
What else would I do? You can buy window alarms that are relative, door alarms that are relatively inexpensive.
Yeah.
Even if they're not connected to anything, just if they open and they make a sound, that's a sufficient thing. Again, they don't want to get caught. So those are probably the best things that I would buy right off the top. For $100, you could easily get all that stuff. It's not, again, a lot of the screws and locks and window locks, those are very inexpensive things.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's smart too, to get that, like the window decal or the
Yeah.
sign that says
Yeah.
like ADT or Simply
Exactly.
Safe
whatever
or
it is.
something
Yeah.
right on the front.
Absolutely.
And you don't have to buy the whole system for that. Obviously, like you'd want the whole system, but if you don't have the budget for it, put a sign out there. It's better than nothing.
Yeah, well, there's been studies where the signs have had a tremendous impact on whether a home's gonna be broken into or not. So the signs are a very effective form of security, whether people realize it or not. It's just a sign, but again, they don't know if it's a real sign, if there's a really an alarm system or not. But they see it and they think, well, that house next door doesn't have a sign, so let's go to that one. And that's going to just take you off that top list of targets.
Right.
Mhm.
All right. So I thought we could jump into this next segment here. It's something new. We're calling it safe or sketchy. And so we have a series of questions here. We're going to ask the chat, and you tell us whether you think it's safe or sketchy. And then Gene is going to go ahead and chime in with his thoughts on this. So, all right. The first one here is garage door left open overnight. Safe or sketchy? This one's a gimme, you guys.
It's very easy.
Yep. Let's see what we get here in the chat. Are you leaving your garage door open overnight? All right. Senior Living says sketchy. James, sketch. Yep. This one's This one's easy. All right.
Yeah.
How about?
That's
Yeah, there's not much. I won't even have you
easy.
speak on that one. Sketchy all across the
Yeah,
board. Okay.
yeah.
How about this one? Garage left open during the day. Or let's say garage open during the day.
Isn't did we just do that one or no?
That was overnight, wasn't it?
Overnight. Okay, overnight.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
This one's during the day. Safe or sketchy? Sketch. All right, we still have sketch here, looks like.
Absolutely. Absolutely. A lot of people get, again, crime opportunity, open garage. People keep a lot of stuff in there. Lawn tools, things like that they can be sold for $50, $20, whatever. Very simple to steal that. Yep.
Yeah, and I always say that's such low-hanging fruit. I mean, just close your garage door.
Yeah.
Don't leave everything just sitting there on a silver platter for thieves. How about this one? Leaving a spare key under the welcome mat. Safe or sketchy? We'll take it back to the 1990s with that one. I'm sure people still do it.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. Safe or sketchy? Let's see what we got here. This is maybe a tricky one. What sketch? Okay, Steven says sketch. What do you think about this one, Gene? MD sketchy.
Yeah, everyone looks for a key. I mean, you gotta definitely don't want to have a key laying around.
How about sort of related though, not under the doormat, but maybe like hidden around the property? Like under a rock, like a secret rock somewhere, or
yeah, I mean it's got to really blend in in order for it to be effective. But it's I get why people do it. Again, another argument for having a smart lock is that you don't necessarily need the key, and you can always just have if someone needs to come over, you can give them a special code to get in and things like that. But yeah, I mean you can hide a key. I would just be very cautious on how you do it. Don't make it obvious and make it somewhere that actually blends in where they can't really tell. That's a fake. They have all the fake rocks, but if it doesn't look like any other rock that you have, it's not going to do you much good.
Right. Yes. Steven wrote convenient though for the door key under the doormat, which yeah, absolutely it's convenient. And so I think a lot of people kind of weigh that like, oh, it's so easy to do this. And then, I'll compromise my safety a little bit, but it's worth it maybe.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Posting vacation pics while you're on vacation, safe or sketchy? And I know we're all guilty of this. Not you, Gene.
Not me.
You got to do it for the gram. Safe or sketchy, guys? You guys do this?
Everybody does it.
Yeah.
Most people do.
And it's hard not to, right?
Yeah.
So we shouldn't be doing that, right, Gene?
No, it's obvious. People, criminals are always online. They're looking for opportunity again. If they see that you're gone, and some people even say, "Oh, we'll be back next month, or we're back in 2 weeks. We're our 2-week vacation." They give a time frame. Even you're like, why would you do that? Why would you tell people, "Oh, I'm in Spain"? Okay, well, I know you're not coming back you're not gonna be here real quick. So they know there's an opportunity. So you got to be very careful about you.
Right. Yeah, James says, joke's on you. I don't post anything until I remember 6 months later.
Good job, James. That's me.
There's also that set. Or like the once a year photo dump. Like,
yeah, right.
Does everything happen in 2025? All right, here's a tricky one. Unlocked, maybe it's not tricky, I don't know. Unlocked second story window. Safe or sketchy? Let's see what you guys got. Probably best to lock all windows.
Yeah, it's a bit sketchy. I mean, you have that false sense of security, like, oh, well, they'd have to bring a ladder. Well, a lot of times people have things at their house that they can be used as a ladder, or they just have ladders on the side of their house or the backyard. So yeah, you'd want to avoid that.
I wonder. So in one of those videos we did watch the other week, the guy talked about utility company, posing as a utility company driving down the street, and they have ladders and they'll put that up against the side of your house. But how do they know that that window is unlocked? Or maybe they see it's like ajar a bit, and
usually they're left open. Usually they're left open. You know, they're left open a little bit, and that's how they know. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Steven says, I'm going to say safe just to shake it up. Sketchy. I've seen guys hop up there easy in my old neighborhood. Yeah. And that's especially true for second story windows, or that have balconies, right? And like the sliding glass doors. That's really easy for burglars to get into.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
All right. Garage door opener clipped to your sun visor in your locked car. Safe or sketchy? Garage door opener on your visor in your locked car.
That's an easy one.
Yeah. I think a lot of people do this, right?
Yeah,
Sketchy.
They do.
Obviously, like in an unlocked car, that's really sketchy, but still in a locked car. What would you say about that, Gene?
Yeah, just don't leave it on the visor. You know, put it in the center console where it can't be seen. Yeah, it's gonna take you 2 seconds longer to get it out when you need it, but it's not seen. At least, you know, if they see it, it makes it easy. If they don't see it, they don't know it's there. So you're better off having that kind of hidden. And a lot of the newer cars, you can actually program the car to be that remote for you. So you don't even need don't need those remote controls anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So someone says in here, easy to break the car window. That's true.
Yep.
But I mean, wouldn't it be just as easy to break a window in the home to get in?
Well, you're gonna hear a window breaking in your residence a lot more than you're gonna hear it from the car window getting
That's
broken.
true.
So there's that advantage, and you know most garage doors are not the loudest. So if you can open that up, the other advantage to that is you can open that garage door up, close it while you're in there, then work on getting from the garage into the inside of the home. So there's advantages to doing it that way. Yeah.
Right. I can see that. All right. Doorbell. Your doorbell rings at 2 a.m., but no one is there when you look. Safe or sketchy? All right. That's another gimme, right?
Yeah, that's
sketchy.
Super sketchy.
How about this though? Doorbell rings at 2 p.m. and someone is there. Safe or sketchy?
We've already answered this.
That is, yeah, I guess we have, right? That's circumstantial. You want to see if you know who it is, make them aware that you are present.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. You just want to let them know that you're there. You don't have to open the door. You can just you talk through the door or use the two-way communication on your doorbell camera if you have that access, that ability.
Yep. James says depends on whether I ordered DoorDash.
That's true. That's a good point.
This next one might also depend on whether you ordered DoorDash, but it's my neighbor's motion light keeps going off, but they're not home. Safe or sketchy? And I'll say that a lot of motion sensors, a lot of the old ones don't have like pet detection on them. So they're not going to know if it's like a chipmunk or a squirrel or a raccoon coming by or a dog. And so they will go off. But nowadays they actually have like pet detection, or, you know, they're only going to illuminate the area once they detect a person, which is very helpful.
I'm laughing at the comments. So.
Yeah. Horror movie, spooky, sketchy.
Yeah, call a priest. Yeah, I mean, if that's happening, repeated triggers could be someone moving back and forth in the yard. Obviously, you know, call your neighbors, call 911, you know, call the police, have it checked out. It's always worth the phone call to the authorities, just to make sure there's not an issue going on. Because if there is, you want to make sure you're able to help mitigate that.
Right.
Yeah.
Great. Any last questions from chat here before we wrap up? This has been really fun and very educational. Again, thank you, Gene. We'll field any last questions that anyone has. Otherwise, we are going to go ahead and wrap up for the day. All right. Remember, we are doing these Tuesdays at 2 p.m. So we have our next live stream coming up on May 6th. It's Unconventional Home Security Methods in History. So that should be a good one. We'll have Gene back for that. And then the following Tuesday, we're going to have a Safe Home Office Hours live Q&A where we're talking more just general home security. We can kind of dive into some different products, some of the different security systems and cameras that are out in the market, and answer questions there. So be sure to attend that. And please, if you're still with us, like this video. It really helps us. Subscribe to the channel. And even hit that bell for notifications when we go live in the future. You'll be notified. And again, yeah, thank you so much, Gene. Everyone seems to have gotten a lot of value out of this.
Good.
So
Good.
yeah, we'll see you next time. Thanks, everyone.